Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. In this video, I want to do a walkthrough to show you how to make an Ubuntu mini computer using a Raspberry Pi 4, specifically the 4GB version. So we're going to cover a few things, including a rather short unboxing of the Pi and its chip peripherals, the 3D printing of the case, the installation of Ubuntu, and finally a brief test drive of our new mini computer. Now I know this has been done 1,000,001 times already, but I haven't configured a Pi with Linux in a long time, so I figured it was time to have a little fun, and here we are. But before getting started, I want to explain the origin of the choice of case I decided to go with. I was lying in bed one night, suffering from a bout of insomnia, listening to the cats doing their 1 AM NASCAR impressions throughout the house, and brainstorming how I wanted to do this video, what I was going to put in the script, and all that good stuff. Well, I decided to take a break and grab my iPad and started watching some old AVGN videos. I ran across the episode where James is talking about his Nintoaster, and it gave me an idea. I remember back in the day when my friends and I used to have Quake, Half-Life, and Unreal Tournament LAN parties. We used to make fun of our computers by calling them toasters, among other things, so I thought, why not make an Ubuntu toaster mini computer? I know it's silly and ridiculous, but I decided to go with it. So the next day I went to my local Goodwill in search of a toaster, only to realize, as you can see, it's just way too big. Not to mention I would have to remove all the internal hardware, the wiring, fabricate brackets, and ensure everything was insulated to prevent shorting. Well, truth be told, that was just way more work than I was willing to put into a silly project like this. So I defaulted to the next best thing, my trusty Ender 3 3D printer. Alright, so that should wrap up the intro. Once again, thanks for watching, and let's get started with our quote-unquote unboxing and take a look at the Pi. Alright, so starting off, we have our clear case, which we're not going to use because we're 3D printing a case. We have our Raspberry Pi 4. And we have our SD to USB adapter. We have our micro SD memory card. We have our Raspberry Pi Quick Start Guide. We have our HDMI cable. We have our power supply. And finally, we have our Linux stickers that we need to put on our case. Because why not? Alright, let's take a look at the actual Pi itself. Let's take this out of the box and have a look. I've already unboxed it and put the heat sinks on, so I'm just going to pretend like I'm unboxing it for the first time. And you can see we have our heat sinks already on our chips. So the first chip we're going to look at is our processor, which is a Cortex A72 quad-core 64-bit. Then we have our 4GB of LPDDR4 RAM. And we have our Ethernet controller. And we have our USB controller. We also have two USB 2 and two USB 3 ports, and we have our dual band Wi-Fi. We have two micro HDMI ports, a headphone jack, and a USB Type-C power connector. On the back side, of course, we have our micro SD card slot. And the front view of it here, taking a look at our four USB connectors and a Gigabyte Ethernet port as well. That's it, so let's move on to the next part of setting up our Ubuntu install on our micro SD. Alright, so we're going to need two things here. We're going to need a micro SD to USB adapter, and we're going to need a micro SD card. I'm using a 128 gigabyte micro SD, but you can use whatever you have handy. And then we're going to plug this into the back of our computer, just like so. And there we go. And we're going to open up a terminal, and we're going to type in sudo apt install rpi-imager, then hit enter, put in your password, hit enter again, and then follow through the prompts. As you can see, I already have it installed, so I'm not going to reinstall it again. Once we're finished, we're going to close out of this. And now we're going to go to our app tray, and we're going to open up the Imager app and click Choose OS. Scroll down to Other OS, click that. Then we're going to choose Ubuntu. And then we have the 22.04 2GB version, which is what we're going to install. So scroll down till you find that. Choose Storage. choose your SD card, hit right, hit yes. Put in your password, hit authenticate, and now we wait it out. This took me approximately about 15 minutes, give or take. Now I do want to say I did try the 23.10 release, but it was a bit sluggish on the Raspberry Pi, so I decided to sort of downgrade and go to the 22.04 release. And we'll take a look at that in a later section. Alright, so let's move on to our next section, which is 3D printing our case. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is go to Thingiverse, one of my favorite websites in the world. And we're going to type in Raspberry Pi Toaster in the search option. And let's see what we've got. And yes, someone has already thought of this. So we have a toaster here. Let's give credit where credit is due. This particular print is made by Michael Curie. All right, let's go back and take a look at this. It looks pretty good, actually. All right, let's go ahead and download the files. Take a few seconds. And let's go ahead and check our licensing here just in case that we need to make any modifications. I'm a big proponent in supporting the creators and following their wishes. So some folks don't want their work being modified or distributed without permission, so I always check license first before I publish something like a YouTube video where I'm using their work. Open up our zip file, extract it into the downloads folder, close out of this, and let's check out the images real quick. So I'm not a big fan of how this Pi is sort of just standing vertical without any real support, so I think I'm going to make a few alterations to this model. Alright, so we're going to go to Tinkercad, which is a free online tool. It's not as powerful or as robust as some of the other options out there, but for a simple project like this, it works fine. So I decided that the original model was just a bit too small, so I'm going to extend the dimensions a little bit, and I'm going to change the bracket that the original creator put at the base of the model with a couple of different brackets. I think would be better suited for what I plan on doing with the placement of the Pi. So I simply just added 15 millimeters to the width and 10 millimeters to the length. I'm removing the bracket that was originally there. I'm going to widen the cable port a little bit so I can fit both the HDMI and the power cord. And I'm going to make the new brackets and place them in the model. That's pretty much it. Not a whole lot to say on this. I'm just going to let the rest of the video speak for itself until we get to the next section. Alright, so now we have our micro SD and our Raspberry Pi and Ubuntu installed. Let's go ahead and go through the configuration process. This should be pretty short and sweet. So the first thing we're going to do is select our language. I'm going to choose English, and you select the language that's most appropriate for you, of course. Now we're going to select our keyboard layout, and then hit continue. Select your Wi-Fi. And put in your password. And we're good to go on that, so hit continue again and select your time zone. Now we're going to put in our username. And then we need to create a password. So I'm just going with the short password for this because I'm not going to be using this for anything serious. And hit continue. Now this process took about 10 to 15 minutes, give or take. I don't remember exactly how long it did take, but it was pretty long. So I've done some editing to sort of shorten this video down, otherwise it'd be over 2 hours for everything that I'm looking at and doing. So we're just going to let it finish configuring, and then we'll move on to the next step, which will be installing some maps. Alright, so we're at the login screen, so go ahead and log in. Just click on your name, put in your password, hit enter, and we are now on our desktop. So you are on Ubuntu on a Raspberry Pi. So the first thing we want to do is upgrade our system. So type in sudo apt update first, hit enter, put in your password, and let it do its thing. This will take a couple of moments. Now type in sudo apt upgrade and hit enter. And you won't need your password this time, it's the same current session. Hit yes and let it finish. This also takes a few minutes, so grab a cup of coffee and sit back and be patient. Now we are finished upgrading our system, so we're going to move on now and install a couple of apps. The first app I want to install is Glances. Glances will give us some real-time data on the performance of our system. So we're going to type in sudo apt install Glances and hit enter, put in your password, and let's wait for the installation to finish. Now we're going to install a utility called Neofetch. Type in sudo apt install Neofetch, put in your password, and let's wait for the process to finish, and I'll show you Neofetch here momentarily. It's a handy utility that gives you some basic information about your system. And we're over Wi-Fi, so again, it's a little bit slower than what I like, but it's fine. So here's Neofetch. You can see it just gives you some information about your system. I've been on for an hour so far, messing around and tinkering a little bit, but it gives you some information on your terminal, on your OS, the kernel type, uptime, and that sort of stuff. Alright, so now we're going to install a lightweight web browser called Falkon. Sudo apt install Falkon and hit enter, put in your password of course. Falkon is a good lightweight alternative to the web browsers typically included in distributions. In fact, I'm thinking about putting it on my pop install. Let's wait for it to finish, and then we'll give it a test run. Right now it's finished. Go ahead and close your terminal. Go down to your apps tray, the bottom left-hand corner. And we're going to scroll over till we find Falkon. Open up the app. And you can see I've already been testing it a little bit here and there. So I have a YouTube video ready to check out, and we're going to use Glances to sort of see what type of strain this is putting on our resources. Open up your terminal by hitting Control Alt and T at the same time. Type in glances, hit enter, and give it a moment. So now you can see it's giving us real-time data on our resources, CPU usage, memory usage, and a lot of other data. But in this case here, since this is a short video on using a Raspberry Pi with Ubuntu, we're just focused on the CPU and the memory. You can see that the YouTube video is only 480p, but it's pulling a lot of CPU and a lot of memory. So let's test the game out. I've already installed Extreme Tux Racer. You can see it's already installed, so we're going to go ahead and give it a shot and play it, see how it looks, how it runs. We'll close out our terminal. Go to our apps tray, find Extreme Tux Racer. There it is. And let's see how good I am. I guess we'll go with the practice track for now. Yeah, not too bad. Frame rate seems okay. Seems pretty smooth. Visuals look pretty good. There is sound, by the way. I've just edited out of this video, but the sound works fine. Of course I miss one. And of course I miss... It's pretty bad when you're bad at Tux Racer. Alright, I suck at the game, but it was fun. Get out of here, and... Can't believe I missed all those fish. Anyway, moving on. Alright, so we're going to install a couple of desktop environments. We're going to install Mate and XFCE4. So we'll start with Mate first. Type in sudo apt install ubuntu-mate-desktop and hit enter. Put in your password, hit enter again. And follow through the prompts. This may take a while, so grab your second cup of coffee or third and sit back, relax, and be patient. When you see the prompt for configuration lighten, just hit OK. And the second prompt is going to ask for your default display manager. You want to select GDM3, hit OK. Now that the installation has finished, if you've closed your terminal, go ahead and open up another terminal. Remember, a shortcut is Control Alt and T at the same time. This time we're going to type in sudo apt install XFCE4 and then hit enter. And as the same with all the other applications and utilities we've installed, just wait for the process to finish and answer any questions that pop up during. And once these are both installed, we'll give them a test run. Alright, so now that everything's installed, we're going to go up to the top right hand corner, select your power off and logout, select logout again, and this will bring us to the login screen, and it's going to put in your username, and then at the bottom right hand corner there'll be a gear. You want to click that, and that will give you the option to select which desktop environment you want to log in with. In this case we're going to select Mate. That's the first desktop environment we're going to take a quick look at. We're going to put in our password, hit enter, and it'll take us into our system. Alright, so I have to change the resolution to 1080p so I can actually see. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. This is not a review of Mate or XFCE. I just kind of want to show you what it looks like on the Raspberry Pi, what it looks like in general, really. So in the top left-hand corner, we have our menu options, and you can see we have access to all different types of functions and apps, and accessories, utilities, pretty much everything you need to perform the various tasks you want and play some games that are fairly low in resource demands. And one thing I do want to point out is that all of the apps any app that you install on your system will be accessible through all of your desktop environments. You can have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different desktop environments, and you'll have access to all those apps in each one of those. All right, so let's move on to check out XFCE. So back at our login page, follow the same steps as before, but this time choose XFCE if you happen to be following this guide. Put in our credentials and hit enter. And here we are on the XFCE desktop environment. So I had to change the resolution again to 1080p. Not going to spend a lot of time on this one either, just going to show you some of the basics. Some of the menus you can see, again, as with Mate, access to all of your functions, apps, and utilities. And when you right click on the desktop, you see you can create folders and pretty basic stuff. All right, so I want you to open up a terminal and type in sudo apt install XFCE4-goodies. Follow the prompts. That will give you access to some of the add-ons and plugins for the XFCE desktop environment. Okay, so that wraps up this section of the video. We have one more part to go, and that's assembling our mini computer, our mini Ubuntu toaster computer. And then that will wrap up the video. All right, so finally, let's take a look at the case. This, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, I guess. There's a couple of imperfections, and I'm not really thrilled with the very top, but I think I'm going to reprint it. The base came out okay. The brackets were a little bit off, so I need to spend more time, go back and redesign them. But overall, it worked pretty well. I decided to use the bottom of the supplied case for a little more support and a little more bracing. So I had to use a dab of adhesive to sort of hold the case in place, which is why I want to go back and redesign the base and reprint it again. I'll do that some other time, but right now I want to put the stickers on, and that's it. So hang on for a few minutes, and I'm going to do a quick debrief, and then we'll end the video. Well, that was actually a pretty fun video to make, but it took a lot longer than I wanted or expected. I had a lot of behind the scenes issues, not with Ubuntu or the Pi, but things like with my Elgato not wanting to cooperate with recording of the Pi in action, and I had to reprint the toaster model because I was in a rush and didn't take the measurements before starting, which did take a couple of days. But what's funny or maybe a little weird is that I actually enjoyed the issues, as it gave me an opportunity to troubleshoot and learn something. Okay, was this little adventure worth it? Yes, absolutely, for me it was. Is it something your average person should take on? Well, to be perfectly honest, I think a project like this is more suited for the hobbyist. If you're looking for an affordable computer and you're not a hobbyist, you might be better off going to your local big box store or Amazon and buying a cheap laptop. The cost of this project was about $150 give or take. Let's see, about $30 for the Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, about $110 for the Pi, and roughly $10 for miscellaneous items such as stickers and a few other things. For the money this project costs, you can grab an Asus laptop off Amazon or something similar in cost from Walmart if you happen to live in the States at least. Another point I want to bring up is that if you decide to take on a project like this, I'd recommend going with the 8GB Pi rather than the 4. You'll get a lot better performance and have a much better experience. Finally, thank you all for watching. As I mentioned in a previous video, I have a lot of ideas and plans for subjects I want to bring to the screen. But there's a lot of work that goes on in making this content. That, coupled with juggling real life, what I think should only take a week ends up taking 2 weeks, if not a little bit more. But the videos are coming. There are 2 things I promised myself when I started this. One is that I will never make a gaping mouth thumbnail, ever. And 2, I will never make a video on something I'm not passionate about or that I won't enjoy. Okay, so with all that, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll stay tuned for the next. See you next time.